Hello, I'm Setareh. I live in Isfahan. I did my PhD in North American Studies at the University of Tehran, Faculty of World Studies. Um, and I defended my PhD in last October. And currently, I'm just trying to work on the corrections so that I can submit the final version. In the meantime, I'm doing freelance research, and yes, I think that's about me.
That's great. Thank you so much for joining us today, Setareh. And it's funny because I'm exactly in the same position as you. I've defended my thesis and
Yeah.
also doing corrections, but big congratulations on submitting the thesis. I mean, I can imagine how
Thank
relieved you
you.
must feel.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's a really great feeling after so many years of,
Of
working on
course.
things. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
congratulations to
oh,
yourself too.
thank you. Thank you. We'll celebrate when we've finished our corrections.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
let's
And
do that.
I hope that will be like we have moved on from the pandemic too,
I hope
because
so. I hope so
yeah, I
too.
hope so.
And if I may ask, what are your research interests and what
Mm.
exactly is your PhD? What was your PhD on?
Well, my PhD, I will start with answering the second
It
question
is
first.
sure, sure,
So
no
my
problem.
my PhD was about the Nation of Islam as a African American social movement, and their rhetoric in terms of persuasive means and persuasion for social movements. Um, and yeah, and so my research interests are mostly focused on, because the methodology that I used was propaganda analysis. So propaganda analysis is one of the research interests, but mainly African Americans. And because I am an Iranian, and no matter how I get involved in those African American studies, I still have I feel like I am a part of that Iran-US relationship, and because it affects my daily life as an academic and an ordinary citizen. So the US-Iran relationship is also one of the research interests.
Of
I do my
course.
own research on that, and sometimes freelance researching.
No, that's very interesting. And yeah, I can imagine it's unavoidable, isn't it? But also, if you study Iran, I think it's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things you just, especially if you study modern Iran, it's one of those things you
Mm-hmm.
just can't avoid.
That's
And
very true.
no, but the Nation of Islam, it's such an interesting choice to research. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we know, I mean, a lot of us, the average person knows a lot about Malcolm X and
Right.
Elijah Muhammad, but
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily much about
Mm-hmm.
the topic itself. So,
Yeah.
yeah, what led you to pursue this, if I may ask?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I was going to say that that's exactly what I mean. Before I start researching about the Nation of Islam, my idea of the group was Malcolm X and the relationship with with Malcolm X, and how Malcolm split with the Nation of Islam, and all the controversy regarding his assassination and the accusations against the Nation of Islam. And honestly, when I started doing that PhD, I knew and I had a plan to work on something with regards to the African American community, but I never thought I would end up researching Nation of Islam exactly.
Mm,
I always admired Malcolm for so many reasons that we all know. And um, I was actually a translator at a conference where a member of the Nation of Islam was also attending.
mm,
And that was my first like real life encounter with the Nation of Islam. And so I
mm.
got into discussions with like there were a few of them, but I was a translator for one. And so I got into discussions with a few of them. And I realized that I was very, I would say, ignorant about a lot of things about the Nation of Islam. And what I knew was just what I had, like read maybe on the internet. And I realized that I didn't have a really like maybe balanced view of the Nation of Islam. So I really wanted to know more, not only about, their spiritual inclinations and their understanding of Islam, which is usually very different from the mainstream Islam that we are more familiar with. But also their relationship with the United States and their role in as a like social movements in the United States. So that's how I really got into it, and I was really interested, and I started reading about the nation. So I actually got a few books from them that they were really nice people, and we could easily talk, and we obviously disagreed on a few things, but there were also so many things in common, and especially with regards to the resistance against the the general US establishment, and how they saw the Islamic Republic as a model, and how I enjoyed how they were very well organized in what they were doing inside the United States. Yeah.
No, that's fascinating. And that must have been quite, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know, I get this impression that the Nation of Islam is quite secretive or quite closed. So it must have been quite special to have gotten insight and into the organization.
Yeah, that's true. And, I was, they were very helpful, but I understand that because they are, a group inside the US, which is under so much attack. And so I understand their secrecy, and maybe that was, I also found that as an obstacle when doing the research. But because, the area that I have chosen was mostly their public rhetoric, so I didn't have many problems with that. But yeah, there are so many things that are difficult to find out about the organization.
No, that's interesting. And I didn't know that that they saw that the Islamic Republic as a kind of model. I think that's quite fascinating. Can you say a little bit more about that? Is that something that features in your research, just I suppose, as well?
Well, there is I did one chapter on the rhetoric of the Nation of Islam regarding the Islamic Republic.
Fascinating.
And that's where, so that's where I kind of try to highlight those similarities that the Nation of Islam itself wanted to embark on and talk about. But yes, I mean, during the informal conversations that we had, they mentioned it, and they also, not necessarily as a model that would fit what they're doing inside the United States, but they look at it as a successful example of being independent and developing their own capabilities. Because like one of those interesting things was that they were fascinated how the Iranian life, especially at that time when I met them, was not really affected despite the severe and cruel sanctions. There is food is abundant, people live their life, and they were very surprised. And what they told me and what I understood was that because they also perform some kind of a boycotting of products inside the US against the corporations that they because they want to have some a black economy which is independent. And this is one of the areas. It was not something that I elaborated on and worked on very extensively, but that was one of the things that they would see as a successful example. Yeah.
I suppose it's like solidarity and resistance, and so and getting
Exactly.
your independence, and no,
Mm-hmm.
that's a very, it's a very, I don't know how to put this, a very interesting parallel somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's and something that I never expected. I didn't
expected.
know that would be so many similarities because,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
my idea of the Nation of Islam wasn't really, I mean, I didn't know enough, I guess,
Now,
before. Yeah.
now you're the expert, so
I'm trying to be an
yeah,
expert. Yeah.
no,
So,
it's
I mean,
good.
there's
It's good.
still a lot to discover. Mm-hmm.
No, that's nice. And you've already touched a little bit about this, but I'll ask it anyway. What were the
Mm-hmm.
main surprises and challenges studying this topic? You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
obstacles, but
Right.
were there other things that surprised you?
Well, I think one of the things that surprised me, or which I actually encountered in the early stages of my research, was how the Nation of Islam was perceived among Muslims and Iranian
Mm,
Muslims,
mm,
how there were like disagreements, because, you know, like even when I mean, when you are in the academia, you try to be and to offer a very unbiased and very impartial
mm-hmm.
outlook. But all of us have our, you know,
We're human.
stereotypes, and
Yeah, we're
yeah,
human, aren't
yeah,
we?
we
Yeah.
cannot say that we were absolutely free from them. But what I encountered and as a challenge was
Mm-hmm.
that those disagreements, strong disagreements
Mm,
between Iranians or Muslims in general, and their view of the Nation of Islam, which was
mm,
either too negative or too positive. And
mm,
those who held too negative usually pointed out the accusations against the Nation of Islam regarding the assassination of Malcolm, but
right,
also
right.
their, you know, Islamic, the spiritual or the religious tenets that they had, and in the view of many Muslims contradicted the mainstream
Mm,
Islam. And
sure.
but to me, as an academic, that was not, I mean, I didn't really care because there were so many things in common. So,
Yeah.
but there were people who would come up to me and said that, like, are you sure that you want to do that? Because,
Ah,
you know, sometimes people are worried about maybe praising someone,
mm,
but that's not the I mean, purpose of academic work. So I'm just trying to look at something that was interesting for me and trying to
mhm.
offer something that's as unbiased and as impartial as I could.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for a lot of us, because you can't
Mm-hmm.
help but bring, what we know or what we think, and I have to say this, when I started working on Iran many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
people in Malaysia would also ask me the same thing. Are you sure you want to
Mm-hmm.
study Iran? For many
Mm-hmm.
reasons, and because they're also taken in by Western ideas of
Right.
Iran. I said, well, it's not. The Iran that you see on TV is not the real Iran. You know that, right? but
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
but people still have these kind of biasness, and this is in
Yeah.
Malaysia, another Muslim nation, telling me this.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
so it's interesting how people, I don't blame them in a way, because, it
Mm-hmm.
comes from a place of care. But it was
Mm-hmm.
funny because I think as academics, we're always challenged by this, aren't
Yeah.
we?
Yeah,
So,
and probably Iran is a topic that has, I mean, you see those challenges a lot more often than
mm,
in many other topics to study,
yeah,
probably.
yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing is, it's if we don't want to discover the real, the truth,
Mm-hmm.
the real picture or the truth, then then that's not what academia is. Academia is trying to
Mm-hmm.
understand it,
Exactly.
look at things more, as you said, unbiased, in an unbiased way, and trying
Mm-hmm.
to be more balanced with
Right.
our views. So yeah, no, it's I completely get that. But thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. No,
Mm-hmm.
this
Anytime.
it's been really interesting. I've learned a little bit more about the Nation of Islam, and I have a little question about them. Do they
Mhm.
are they active outside of the United States, or is it really just an
Yeah.
American organization?
Well, they are active, especially in Africa. They are
Ah,
active.
okay.
Yeah, and I mean they have something that, I mean, an international relations sector that
Oh
works
wow.
like a foreign minister for them.
Wow,
Yeah, and
okay.
they yeah that, I mean this organization, like how well organized they are is very
Mm,
interesting to study
yeah.
actually. Yeah, so they
Oh,
have a like a national representative or something who works as a foreign minister and tries to
right.
establish ties with Muslim countries, African countries, just anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Incredible. I didn't know that. Have they reached Iran by any chance?
Yeah, I mean,
Ah,
Louis Farah Khan has visited
uh-huh.
Iran.
Oh,
I have
right.
actually met with him too.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's pretty
yeah.
amazing.
That was one of the really exciting experiences that I
Wow.
had studying
That's
the
pretty
Nation of Islam.
cool.
Yeah, and he was
Right.
very
Yeah.
supportive because it was difficult because all of the security
Of course.
measures that they take, especially that Iran took for Farah Khan. But he was very welcoming and very
Uh-huh.
nice. And yeah, so he has met with a few Iranian officials and
Right. Right.
yeah,
Interesting.
so they
I
have.
had no idea. No, but that's very, very what an experience for you. I know.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but
Oh,
I didn't know that. But thank you. Thank you so much for
mhm.
answering all my questions. And
No problem.
it's been really fascinating. And I've got one final question for you,
Sure.
and that is, what do you plan to do with your research? And after now that you've finished your PhD, are you considering to stay on in
Mm.
academia? What would you like to do?
Well, I would really love to stay in academia because
Hmm.
that's what I really enjoy.
Sure.
But, because it hasn't been a long time since I defended, I'm still
Hmm.
trying to figure out
Hmm.
if I can find research positions
Sure.
inside Iran or abroad.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, my plan is to stay here in academia and maybe look for teaching positions or
Hmm.
research
Hmm.
positions.
Well, I wish you all the best. I'm certain you'll find a research position
Mhm.
somewhere. Yeah, your research is super interesting, and
Thank
it's been
you.
such a pleasure to talk with you, Setareh. So thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time.
Thank you for your time too and for having me. It was really enjoyable talking to you.
Great, great.